Amazingly enough, that's who we have in the chair, Executive Chairman John Chambers of Cisco, one of the tech heavy hitters who met with President Xi in Seattle last week. Welcome, and thanks for joining us in a Fox Business exclusive.
Liz, it's a pleasure to be with you again.
Well, I'll tell you, you were front row of the class picture last week. You were standing right there with President Xi in Seattle right before he came here to meet with President Obama. And it's at a very interesting time when the Chinese are perceived as public hacking enemy number one. Why do you not see them that way? In fact, you've just struck a $100 million deal with a Chinese partner.
So a series of questions, Liz. Number one, I've been doing business in China for 30 years. If you watch, really, it is in both the Chinese best interest and American best interest that both of us have strong economies. That will help employment in both areas. I think it was time for us to bring our businesses back together and over time our governments to deal with some of the issues and focus on the future. I do believe what President Xi said, and I am always a trust but verify person, but I think it was one of the best speeches I've seen a Chinese leader give in quite a while, and he gave his policy speech, interestingly enough, in Seattle. And so if you watch what Cisco's done, this is not a reaction of the last 6 months. We started investing on this 3 years ago. And so it worked up to a win-win relationship with other companies in China.
What amazes me, though, is that these cybersecurity firms like FireEye recently found 14 instances of Cisco routers that had been infected, not because they had holes, but because the businesses that use these routers had password holes. So these hackers, allegedly Chinese, were able to somehow infect into the Cisco routers. I would look at that and I'd say, what are you people in China doing? And stop ruining my routers. This is terrible.
Well, what's interesting, Liz, is we're probably the most trusted technology company and definitely in networking around the world.
So all the more reason that you would look at this and say these people are good and they're vicious.
Well, I think a lot of state agencies around the world have tremendous capability.
Including ours.
Including ours. Secondly, when you talked about it, what occurred there is like somebody leaving their password or their keys to their house on the front doorstep and wondering why somebody broke into it. So that could happen to any technology. Third is I think President Xi went a long way in terms of saying let's the U.S. and China say how do we prevent corporate espionage going forward. He would not have said that unless he really means it, and it'll be very easy to verify as we go forward. But back to the bigger picture. Our two countries during this period where the stock market's down like this have to come together. We've got to get our economies going well. We've got to have rules of the road that both sides will abide to, which is a letter I wrote to our president saying we have to step up to this issue. But what was the unkept secret this last week was at the same time the Chinese leadership was there, and we're very comfortable with our partnership with Inspur. It was much like a partnership we did with Apple just 2 weeks before, where between Cisco and Apple, we could be the architectures for enterprise going forward. Was Prime Minister Modi was here from India. He might be one of the top 5 leaders I've ever met in my life.
Why?
Because he has an ability to outline a vision. And then with that vision, he's able to say, here's how I can change my country, the lives of every single citizen in India. Here's how the U.S. technology and the Indian technologies companies ought to work together. And here's how it can make a difference for our countries to work together. He will be the largest democracy ever that becomes completely a digital country. You're seeing this already occur in Israel, where Shimon Peres started it, and Netanyahu took it the next step, 420,000 jobs. You're seeing it in France with the socialistic government.
Okay, so that's what I want to ask you.
Yes.
Are we behind France in the digitization game? This is stunning to me. I know France well. I did a year abroad there, and they always seem behind us. Are you saying we're behind them in digitization?
At the country level, yes. President Hollande, Prime Minister Valls, Secretary of Defense Laurent Durand, their economy lead Macron, they're united on how they move in France. We are their partner. We're working to generate 1 million jobs. We're working about how you literally wire the whole country and create 1 to 3% growth in GDP. The GDP can do the exact same thing here in the U.S., and this is what our political leaders are missing. We could grow the GDP by 1 to 3% more over the next 5 years with the second phase of the internet. That's what digitization is about. That's what Prime Minister Modi is going to do in India. For every person in India, broadband to them, change healthcare, education, jobs creation, manufacturing, a new generation of high-tech companies.
So, folks, you're looking at a CEO and a former CEO and now executive chairman of a Dow component who is working with the Chinese and working with the Indians. You are unafraid.
And the French and Germany
Everybody.
and UK and Israel.
But I'm talking about the countries
Yes.
that are considered nefarious in certain regard. Not India, but what about Iran? Would you do business with Iran?
No, I would not.
Okay.
And this
Why?
goes back to a higher level. There's a matter of trust. And I've been doing business in China for 30 years. I have found them always to be trustworthy when they told me they would do something or not do it. And I'm always very direct back in terms of if this isn't right for us to do such given source code, we will never do it. But the bigger issue, Liz, that everybody's missing, this is about the next generation of the future of our economy. This is where our political leaders on both the Republicans, especially Republicans, because as you know, I was one of John McCain's 5 national co-chairs. We need to articulate a vision for America of the future. It will be a digital country. Nobody's talking about that. We should generate incrementally an extra 1 million jobs per year because of this. We should be talking about real per capita income rise. We should be talking about if we don't do this, the jobs we will lose to other parts of the world, which we should not.
I'm wondering if we're losing jobs right now looking at this stock market. Does something like this worry you as a CEO before we let you go?
The answer is no, not in the short term. My parents are both doctors. I focus not on the symptoms and take 2 aspirin and feel better. I focus on the longer term issues. The longer term issues, who wins this digital era race? The U.S. has always led in every major technology change. We must lead in this one.
It's wonderful to have you. John Chambers, Executive Chairman of Cisco.
Liz, it's a pleasure as always.
Meeting with every world leader who matters and won't do business with the Iranians. That's interesting to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz.
Great to have you.